this is not an official Riot product. This is something I jammed together using Unreal Engine in 2 days. And I did it to make something Riot wouldn't. You see, a decent chunk of people will know that in my free time, I am making my own game. 4 years ago, I realized that since I'm talking about the design of League of Legends all the time, I might as well practice what I'm preaching. And so I picked up game development from absolute scratch, just to learn. And 4 years later, that game that helped me learn is gonna come out this year. Also, yes, I have to mention I'm working on the game in as many videos as possible because every time I do, the wishlists actually go up. And if you launch your game with at least 10,000 wishlists, Steam is gonna give you some promos. We're almost there and you know what to do. The link is in the description. Anyway, one method to become a better game developer is to just try different things. And so, after all those years of working on a story-based rage game, I wanted to make something that would help me make videos, as well as possibly collaborate with other creators. For that, I had to do 2 things. It had to be something based around League of Legends, and it had to have multiplayer. So I started with a very natural thing. I started ripping off Riot's models. You see, from the beginning I knew that I wanted to do something with the map, because Riot wouldn't. Although I still wanna keep the end goal a secret for now, I'll make a video on that later. But to get the map, I had to go to the Universe website, and from there you are able to get a bunch of textures, but the files don't have a 3D model for it. And that's because the 3D illusion of that map runs on a bump map. It is this black and white texture. Basically, the more white it is, the higher those vertices are gonna be. In other words, the white parts are essentially the height map of the mountains. And after I slapped that onto a plane that I had to subdivide quite a few times in Blender, voila! I reversed engineered the map of Runeterra. Of course, it is kinda weird to see the Unreal Engine mannequin running around. And so, let's turn him into a minion using the Kada Jin model viewer. Sure, it took a few times to get that right, but alas, the minion was born. After which it was time to populate the map. Here I had 2 options. Either I would use the high-res models from Legends of Runeterra, or you could use the low-poly models of the official map. At first I tried to go with the high-res models because, truth be told, they are a lot cooler, but unfortunately they didn't exactly fit in on the map, because the map is a totally different style. So I used the low-poly models, which you can see on the official map. And that's where I ran into an interesting problem. You see, out of all the major cities around the map, Piltover doesn't even have a physical location, meaning I had to make one myself. So I ripped the model from Legends of Runeterra, and after some tweaking, yeah, it does the job. So later I thought, at some point I would like other streamers to kinda join in on the fun, which means I have to make this a multiplayer. Let me tell you, multiplayer, a whole new rabbit hole. And I will never laugh at Riot Spaghetti again. Replication is not fun. But huzzah! Eventually I actually got it working. Although it was completely pointless for today's video. No, rather than that, that was the moment I got the most brilliant idea. I realized that there was always one video that I wanted to make, but I always ran into technical limitations. I always wanted to place champions around the map to teach people about where the champions are from. The technical limitation is, that's 170 champions on a map. If you wanna edit this using images from Photoshop put into Premiere, you're dealing with 170 layers in Photoshop. That's gonna lag out most computers. And let's not even talk about doing that directly in Premiere, meaning there is 170 layers in Premiere. That would likely be even worse. So I realized I can totally just make my own game where I place the champions around the physical map. And so that's what I did. Of course, loading in 170 champions is also a challenge. There is a reason why League has only 10 at a time, but there are ways to work around it. So I returned to step 1, ripping off Riot's models. Since I needed something to move the markers around, I took Mordekaiser's model, I deleted his body, I cried at how many Engons I created, but in the end, it worked. I used blend shapes to animate the poses so that he could grab things, after which I made the hand follow the cursor, and there it was. After some more fiddling with the code, it could even grab onto physical wards that wiggled around with physics. I also made it physically place them down, and later I added the little target that would show you where you are placing the ward. But next, if you go to the original map, you might notice that all the little cities are also on the map. And so I had to manually create all the markers for all the cities. That took quite a while to do, with the last missing part being the champions. Now, I didn't actually want to download all 170 different models for all the different champions, even though I was convinced that Unreal could probably handle that pretty well. And so instead I took a more creative approach. Since the wards already worked, I just gave them a plane and I snapped a picture of a champion onto that plane. I turned that into a material instance where the texture was a variable, meaning that every single ward has the same instance of the material with just a different texture. See, this is spaghetti with some optimization. Also, swapping the textures for 170 champions took me well over an hour. But the results speak for themselves. It looks fine. And that is where you might be asking the most important question. Is this legal? Well, under Riot's legal jibber-jabber. As long as I keep this project private and I don't publish it publicly anywhere as a standalone app, as long as what I made stays in my possession, it is technically considered fan art. But I'm no lawyer, and so today we can finally have some fun with the map of Runeterra. And so let's do exactly that as we talk about where all the League of Legends champions are actually from. Well, welcome to my domain, a little app that I made, which is gonna be focusing on moving characters around the map that, of course, Riot did not update in quite a few years. So, we have our little minion that has a broken little, well, he's kind of missing a little bone that would be holding the parchment, but if this little minion that we can control, because I am a really good programmer, moves into the Immortal Bastion, he can become Mordekaiser's hand. And now with this hand, what can we do? We can click and point at our little assortment of champions. Huzzah! All champions are here. Okay, so we will be doing one thing. We will be moving champions around the map to show you where they are from. And so huzzah! First of all, Aatrox. Aatrox is very simple. Aatrox used to be a good old Shuriman Ascended. Now, I don't believe we know exactly where Aatrox is from, but he is from Shurima because he, of course, was an Ascended warrior, so let's just keep him there. Okay, next, moving on to the next one, we have Ahri. Ahri, of course, is from Ionia. She is from the Vistani tribe that did move to the Blessed Isles, and they did do some crazy things on the Blessed Isles, but very specifically, I don't believe we know where Ahri is from. Actually, that would be technically a lie, because as the bio states, her earliest memories were from the Shonzan area of Ionia, because the tribe was nomadish in nature, meaning that they were traveling all around the world, including, of course, a lot of Ionia. But that's roughly where her story began, even though, again, we don't really know what happened before the entire story was kind of unfolded in Ruination. Or sorry, in the Ruined King. Alright, Akali. Akali, just like most of the other ninjas, will have a very easy spot. And that is, of course, the Kinku Monastery. We don't know where exactly they are from, and that includes all the ninjas in this specific area, but if it's near the Kinku Monastery, I think that's a safe bet. Alrighty, next we have Akshan. Now, Akshan was from Shurima, and there is actually a very specific story. The one story with the warlord that terrorized the home city actually happened in the city of Marwai. The thing is, I copied all the cities from the map that Riot has, but Marwai is not there. So, look, Akshan is just gonna be, let's say, it has to be along the river because that's where all the cities are. So, there. Sure. Alright, next, Alistar. Alistar is gonna be simple. Alistar is from the mountain range just below Noxus. There we go. There is the, not these mountains, it is the Great Barrier. There we go. And of course, the only reason we know that he's from there is because in the original lore, he was from the Great Barrier, and then Riot was like, you know what? Let's just keep the name the same, update the map, let's just keep Alistar there. And so next after that we have Mbessa. Now, of course, if you've read the Mbessa novel, you will learn that the Mbessa novel did not tell us a specific city where she's from. They did kinda talk about the Medarda being around the coasts, which would, like, I would assume, like, maybe. Maybe that's a little bit too close to the capital city, but you know, they were an important royal family, so I'm just gonna pretend with this one, because I do not believe we have any specific things that would point us in the right direction. Although, to be fair, there were also like mentions of, I believe, the Rock Rune, so it could, in theory, be the southern coast. You know what? Well, we'll keep you there because it's close to Piltover, and so it makes more sense, I guess. Now, Amumu! We still don't know if Amumu is a Yordle. The assumption is that he is a Yordle, but Yordles are kind of weird if Amumu is truly a Yordle. We'll just put him in the middle of the desert. 4 Yordles, because we know that all of them are from Bandle City, and I am not prepared for Bandle City. If I show you my map, brilliant design, I know. This is this little thing shows me where I'm on the map, and of course at the bottom you can see all the champions. I'm not ready for Yordles. I didn't give them any specific places, so instead for Yordles, we'll put them where they are currently in the lore. And there is Anivia. Oops. Anivia. Anivia doesn't really have any specific place in the Freljord. However, we can put her somewhat close to where the Notai tribe would be. This is more of a Rosen territory. This is more like Lysandra capturing people. As far as we know, Nalshag is like roughly where Nuno and Willem would be-ish. So let's just put Anivia there for now. As we get to the other gods, you'll see it will make more sense. And there is Annie, whom we previously picked up. Annie is a Noxian. However, again, her story was about her getting dragged to a school, which means it shouldn't be in like a mainland Noxus in the center. The assumption would be that LeBlanc would be screwing with the students like around the edges. Maybe not even in the Noxian territory itself, meaning like it would be like there-ish. But let's play it safe. Roughly in the middle. Sure, that makes sense. Next up, let's move to Aphelios. Aphelios is, of course, a Lunari. Born Lunari, which means, we'll blob him somewhere. There we go. Somewhere on the mountain. Not the very peak, okay? Very peak, that's for Celestials. But Aphelios right there. Of course, Diana will join him later. Even though Diana wasn't born Lunari. She's the one who kind of discovered the Lunari, so... or rediscovered them, rather. But we'll get to that later. Now, Ashe. Ashe actually has a specific spot in the Freljord. We don't know the exact city, but we know the place from the comics. Because all of these cities are actually from Ashe's comics. So let's just plumb her into the middle, because she was born around this area somewhere, and that's where all the comics happened, which is essentially her story when she was young. So that place totally makes sense. Now, next, Aurelian. Aurelian is a cosmic entity. I'm kind of not ready for Aurelian. I don't have a little pocket of space, so let's just... He's gonna be there on the side. Next, Aurora. Now, Aurora is a Vastaya that's native to the Freljord, as far as we know, but I don't think we have any idea where she would be from. Although she did stumble upon Ornn, and Ornn should be around Winterspike. Although that's kind of where the original concept of the map showed him. Like this used to be Hearthhome, and then Riot renamed it to Winterspike because they didn't want Hearthhome to be like that known. Also, Hearthhome is supposed to be collapsed because that's where they fought with Volibear, meaning technically it can be in the far north somewhere, as far as we know. I mean, the Ursine are right here on the edge of what we even know exists, so it's possible that Ornn would be further north, but for now, let's just pretend that Winterspike is still Hearthhome, as was originally concepted. Now, next, Bard, Cosmic Entity. He's from outer space. Where's Aurelian? There we go, they can be friends. They can be friends right here. Alright, next, Azir. Azir, of course, son of the Emperor, became Emperor himself. He has to be in the capital. Blep. There we go. Right on the pedestal. Nexty, we have Belveth. Oops. Belveth. Belveth is technically Well, you see, Belveth technically was born in the Void, but she consumed a port city of Belveth, which I do not remember if it's the south or the north. But Belveth was a city that got consumed, and we can assume it would be like here-ish. That would be my assumption, kind of close to Icathia, maybe. Because if not, if there was a city that was consumed and like... Shouldn't it be shown on the map somewhere? Okay, I did actually do a quick search. Nope, we don't know where the city of Belveth was, so let's just pretend that's where it was. Now, next, whoops. Brand, for Brand, we actually have to travel all the way to the other side of the map. I wish I made the flying a little bit faster, because Brand is actually from Raigan's Reach. Boop, there we go. That's where he was a young mage who was, he was the son of a witch. The witch was hated, everyone hated them, even though they were just good guys, and bad things happened in the end, and that city is burned. Alright, and there is Brom. Now, Brom did have a lot of stories from like the... I believe around Racklestake-ish. I don't believe we would be moving around Frostheld. However, some of his stories again are happening with Ornn and his door that he crafted for Grubgreg, which means Ornn should be more in this area. Sorry, Brom should be more in this area. And you know what? Sure, it makes sense. It makes sense for the grassy areas to be there too, because in all the teasers, that's where Brom was shown. So either I would put him right here in the center, or maybe even this little area, but let's just put him right there. Alright, Briar. Oops, that's a Briar. That's also not Briar. That's Briar. Briar has a very simple story. Briar was technically crafted by the Hemomancers of Noxus. Bloop. That's pretty much where she was born. Alright, Caitlyn. Native to Piltover and Zone, of course. Let's just put her... Where can we put her specifically? In the city. You can see how detailed the city is. Sure. She was in Piltover, not in Zone, so let's just pretend that that's exactly correct. Also, since we're here, let's just drop him somewhere in there. There we go. Okay, next. Alright, next, Camille. Oh my god, okay, so Piltover and Zone, huh? Camille, of course, also Piltover. Let's just drop her up right on top of Blitzcrank, because we don't know where exactly they are from. Cassiopeia. Cassiopeia, of course, is native to the great city of Noxus. So in the Immortal Bastion, there are the noble houses. She's there. She's gonna be there with Katarina. Let's just put her on one side, opposite of Briar. When we get to Katarina, they are gonna be there next to each other. Cho'Gath. Okay, so let's put the Voidborn on like one pile next to Icathia, because the Voidborn are not from Icathia, because this is Icathia. They are from what's inside Icathia right now. So we'll just pretend that's the Void for now. Okay, Corki. Corki. Corki is one of the Yordles who still doesn't really have any lore on Runeterra whatsoever. So if the Yordles have their little pocket, Corki doesn't. Corki is like, sure, he is from Bandle City, but I have no idea what he's doing right now on Runeterra. Next, Noxus. Of course, Darius has a specific city, because Darius and Draven are from Basilish, right there. We'll get to Draven and put him there next to him later. And there is Diana. Now, Diana was born a Solari. Let's just pretend if this is like the Lunari side, this is gonna be the Solari side. There we go. And of course, Leona's gonna be there next to her later. Moving on, next row. Dr. Mundo. My god, did Arcane do quite a lot of damage to our beloved characters. Let's just shove him somewhere in there. Draven. There we go. Draven is gonna be right next to Darius in Basilish. Boop. There we go. Moving on, we have Echo. Now, Echo, one of the characters from Arcane that we know about, was technically born in... Well, it's Zaun, because we all remember young Echo. So, you know what? The top side of Zaun is gonna be Arcane. Bottom side is whatever the heck. And of course, Vi and Jinx will eventually be there with Echo. Elise. Now, Elise is originally from House Kythera, which is a Noxian house, which should be in the Immortal Bastion. Let's just put her, like, right north of Dooku Dollhouse, which is what Cassiopeia is. Now, moving on, we have Evelyn. Now, Evelyn, okay, so similar to Yordles, Evelyn is a demon, but
demons are kind of born as energies. They can be wherever. For Evelyn specifically, she was mentioned to like come to life after the Rune Wars around Demacia. It should be like the southern... No, I'm lying. Am I lying? It's definitely the mountains. The northern mountains are more Poppy and Gwen. I think the southern mountains is more Vayne, but I could be lying. I think it's actually the north. I think it's the north because that's also where we get other demons later. So, long story short, Evelyn is definitely Demacia. We don't know where exactly. Okay, moving on. We have... Nope. There we go. Ezreal is from Piltover, and despite not having a story in Arcane, Ezreal is actually one of the more consistent characters from Piltover, so there we go. Yeah, even after Arcane, Ezreal is totally good. Okay, Fiddlesticks. Fiddlesticks, just like Evelyn, is from... not from Demacia, but his influence is mostly seen in Demacia right now. Let's just plug him into the middle. Sure. You'll see Demacia has a lot of demons, and those demons do not like to leave that place because, my god, is there a lot of anguish from Demacians. Alright, speaking of Demacians and anguish, there is Fiora. Fiora does not have a very specific place. She is technically in the capital. We have no idea if she was born there, but let's just put her right there. Boop. There we go. Alright, I should have made the flying a lot faster. Alright, Fizz. The Fizz, he is like shown to be in Bilgewater a lot. Oh, that's not Bilgewater, that's Shadow Isles. There we go. He is shown to be in Bilgewater a lot. I would actually say there is a better chance that he was more in the Marai territory. But let's put him in the Guardian Sea. Let's put him there. It's close to Bilgewater. It kind of makes sense for all the setups that Riot has now, and whatever is still canon for Fizz, we have no idea. Okay, next, Galio. Oops, that's not Galio. Galio. We all know Galio. Let's drop him right into the center of Demacia, right into the capital city, right in the middle of all the glory. Let's put him... perfect. Of course, he was created there by Durant, because of self-defense and stuff. Well, technically, it should be a little bit lower, because he wasn't created in... No, I'm lying. He was created in the Great Capital City. Next, it wasn't even the second version, just the first version. Anyway, Bilgewater, Gangplank, Bilgewater, Pip. There we go. Nothing more to really say there. Garen, alright, back across the map into Demacia. Why is Demacia that far away? Oh god. And of course, in Demacia, he was not born in the capital city. Garen was born in High Silvermere. Right there. Right with Lux. We'll get to Lux later. Next, Gnar. Let's throw him into the bin, because I have no idea what to do with Gnar. Gnar is like nowhere, really. Gragas! Freljord! Now Freljord, I believe he did have a story in one of the pubs, and I think it's around Reckl's sake, because like later he joins the Avarosans, and we have no idea how much of that lore is true, so he should be from this general area, between like the Avarosan to like the current Avarosan territory, like maybe a little bit there. Alright, next, Graves. Graves, exactly like Gangplank, exactly like Twisted Fate. Boop, straight from Bilgewater, nothing crazy happening there. Gwen! Oh god. So Gwen is from Kamavor. And of course, this map does not have Kamavor. This map has the end of the world. And I don't wanna throw her across the border of the world. So, and this is Shadow Isles. She's not from here. Let's just put her there. Right? She's from outside Shadow Isles. Speaking of which, also a Kamavoran is our Hecarim. Let's put him right next to Gwen right there. Then there is Heimerdinger. While Heimerdinger is of course from the Bandle City, let's shove him into Piltover right next to Echo. Why not? Even though he should be in the Piltover area, not Zone, because of course he was part of the council. Next, next, Hui. Now Hui. I believe that Hui... Oh god, was it from the Sudaro Island? Nope, different island. It was just the island of Koyan, which I believe... It should be written here. Hold on. Koyan. Raylin? Olin? Quailin? Barl? I think we're missing an island here. According to the bio, it should be the northwest. Meaning it has to be like one of the smaller islands. I think it should be that one then. And it is supposed to be a tiny island, so that will make sense. Alright, next, Irelia's back into Ionia, and there we need to drop her in the Placidium, or at least somewhere next to it. Alright, then there is Ivern. Now Ivern is actually a Freljordian who traveled to Ionia, meaning that they should be from the top coast somewhere. I'm pretty sure we don't know the specific location, but let's just put Ivern in there. Because of course Ivern the Cruel was originally a Freljordian who was very cruel, and then he cut down a tree and he became very happy. Thank you, Mother Nature. Alright, now we should be moving. Oh, we skipped Ilawi. Okay, Kassadin, of course, is from Shurima, and I think, is it Sairama? Okay, so it was. I did remember Sairama correctly. It's not mentioned if they are from there specifically, and that should also include Kaisa, if I can find her in there since we're here. But yes, Sairama is definitely mentioned in the bio. There we go, let's just put them in there. Boop. Alright, next, Ilawi, straight into Bilgewater. The Buru Isles, I believe, should be more to the... It should be to the west. I don't think it's the very north. The map never, like, specified it. Let's just say there, sure. It's the Buru Islands of the Serpent Isles. Also, hold on, since Kalista is here, let's drop her into Kalavor. Boop. Next, let's move into... Okay, sure. Let's put you into your own Nazuma, your own region that had exactly one story and then nothing ever happened. There we go. We still don't know where exactly, if like Nazuma is this portion or this portion. We just know it's south of Shurima. It's in the mountain somewhere, so it should be here. But also this area has little like void nonsense happening at the very, very bottom of the mountain range. This should make sense. Jenna, of course, Jenna is a wind spirit goddess. Let's just put her into like the seas of Piltover, because that's where she had the most influence. Of course, she was prayed to by like more even like Bilgewater and stuff like that, but so you know what, hold on, before we move Jarvan, let's move Jenna into like this area. That's where she was like mostly worshipped before Azir came. Anyway, Jarvan, of course, Jarvan needs to be dropped into the capital of Demacia. Boop, as a royal prince. There we go. Alrighty, next, Jax. I said Jax is from Icathia. Now, Icathia, long gone. This is what Icathia is right now, but he is from Icathia, so let's just put him there. He was a good old Icathian before Icathia got destroyed. Okay, Jace. Let's move him into Piltover and Zone. Right, and I saw Jinx there too, so let's move Jinx into Zone. And of course, then there is Jhin. Now, Jhin, we know the later parts of his story. Like, a lot of his story happened in here, between the Kashuri Armory and the Tula prison, which is after he got, you know, after he got captured. But also, the vast majority of him killing people and the Kinku going after him happened in between. The truth is, we don't know where he's truly from, so let's just put him between like the triangle of where all of his stories happened. Alright, next there is Karma. Karma, I'm pretty sure it's actually from the island of Barl and not exactly the Placidium, because she was like later, she was found and then she became the next reincarnation of the spirit. But let me quickly search that. Nope, I was wrong. She was raised in Shenzhen. There we go. Right next to Ari. Maybe they met. Alright, and then we have Karthus. I said Karthus. Karthus is a Noxian who just really liked death, and his story mentioned that he was born like near the edge of the Empire. Since he was also later interested in the Shadow Isles, there is a good chance he might be from like these areas too, because like by now the edge of the Empire is pretty much anything, but he was also close to the war when it happened, so I would say coastal areas. No, the original idea was better. This would make more sense for Karthus, but just know that he is from Noxus originally, And that's kinda it. Alright, Katarina, there we go. Katarina should be right there next to Cassiopeia because they are from the House du Couteau. Boop, there we go. Alright, moving on, we have Leona. Let's put Leona right next to Diana because they are both from the Solari side. Boop, there we go. From the Solari side of the mountain. Okay, then Kale. Of course, Kale and Morgana were born on the mountain. We don't know exactly where, just Targon in general, so General Targon, sure, makes sense. Next up, Kayn. Kayn, of course, is an Ionian. Sorry, what am I saying? No, Kayn is a Noxian. Oh my god, I almost tricked myself. Kayn is a Noxian who got picked up by the army and then sent into Ionia to fight. But I am pretty sure the story doesn't mention where he's from, so let's just put him somewhere in there. Alright, next Kennen is an Ionian Yordle. Of course, Yordles are from the Battle City, but right now, Kennen would be from around the Kinku Monastery. There we go, with the other ninjas. Alright, moving on. There is Kha'Zix. Even though, you know, born in the void, yada-da-da-da-da, he should be, like, between Ikathia and between the Kilash tribe, because of course he fights Rengar. Rengar is from there, so that area would make sense. Alright, Kindred. Kindred are death, but we can put Kindred into one area where we know they had quite a lot of story. And that is... they don't really have that specific place that I had in mind. But Needlebrook also had a mention. This general area is where Kindred has a lot of stories because, like, the traveling theaters play their games, and of course, there is the brilliant story with the writer who couldn't finish the play about Kindred, and then someone tried to finish it and they died. I love that story. Alright, Kled, again. Kled is a Yordle, however, we know that Kled is from the Dalamore Plains. There we go. Dalamore Plains. That's the one area that Kled is protecting to this day. Against nobody, really. Alright, moving on. Kog'Maw. I said Kog'Maw. No idea. He should be just nowhere with Cho'Gath. Even though Cho'Gath is there. Alright, just so Cho'Gath isn't alone. Yep. There we go. Alright, LeBlanc. LeBlanc is, of course, from the more primitive times of Noxus, as far as we know. Of course, she could be way older than that, but let's just put her next to Noxus. Because, of course, she was there for the vast majority of the big events. And we don't know where exactly she was from. Okay, so next. Boop. Lee Sin is actually from around the Hirana Monastery of Ionia. Lilia should be around the Dreaming Tree of Ionia, but I'm pretty sure we don't know where exactly that is. Let's just put her into, like, central... I would say it has to be closer to Hirana, maybe, because that's where, like, the Spirity side is, but also Kinku. So let's Central Ionia is the safest bet. And of course, Lysandra among the three sisters. She was there from the very beginning, which means, of course, we need to drop her right into the Frostguard Citadel. Can we put her on the bridge? Boop. There we go. Perfect. All right, Lucian. Born after his father, or at least. Well, we don't know where his father was born, but we know that Lucian is a Demacian. So let's just put him somewhere in there. Alright, Lulu. Lulu did have one story where she appeared in the fight with Draven somewhere in Noxus. Let's just put her there. Alright, Lux. Okay, across the world to Demacia, because Lux is, of course, from High Silvermere together with Garen. There we go. Next up, Malphite. Of course, Malphite. Malphite was technically born in Ishtal because he was created there as a monolith to fly over to Ikathia and fight, and he did not exactly win. Well, to be fair, he wasn't supposed to fight. It was a flying citadel, and the citadel broke into pieces, and one of the pieces was Malphite. He is Ishtali, though. Then there is Malzahar. Malzahar is from one of the Shuriman small cities. I don't think it was Irama this time. Alright, so the story mentions Amakra, which I don't think, nope, is anywhere on the map. But it should be closer to the south, because that's where, like, you know, his later stories happen. So let's put him right there. Unfortunately, the city where he's actually from is not on the map. All right, Maokai from the Blessed Isles originally, except it's now the Shadow Isles. Of course, Master Yi has a very specific place on the island, and that is right here, Vuju. Because of course he's from the Vuju village, and he is the Vuju master. Moving on, Mel. She's gotta be there with Ambassa. Even though we don't know, even the book didn't specify where exactly they are from, so just Noxus in general. Milio is from a city that's not in Ishtal, so let's put him on the, like, there. Somewhere that's further away from the capital, because of course in his story he's traveling to the capital city, so let's just keep him there. Miss Fortune, she's gonna be there with the other gang. Whoop, right on Bilgewater. And then Mordekaiser, of course Mordekaiser founded the Immortal Bastion, but before that he kind of like ruled the general tribes of like the entire northern continent, so you know, the continent is his. And then there is Morgana. I said Morgana. Morgana is there with Kale, because of course they were born together. There we go. And they were separated together later in Demacia, but that's a later story. Okay, since Olaf was here, for Olaf we also have to travel across the entire world to the other side, and that's because Olaf should be from Lokfar. There we go. Alright, Nafiri, general area. Cypherage, sure. It's somewhere in Shurima, but we don't exactly know. Except, I mean, it depends. Do you count the dog? The dog that became Nafiri would be like, you know, the desert-ish. But also, Nafiri, as in the Ascended Host, sure, let's put her right next to Aatrox, because, I mean, all the Darkin were from the Ascended Host. Alright, there we go. Nami, of course, Nami is gonna be from the Marai territory. Boop, close to Dargon, there we go. And then there is also Nasus. Nasus should be, as far as we know, near the capital city, because that's kind of like how the Empire works. But of course, Nashrame has a library that was named after Nasus later, so maybe there is a little bit of reference happening there. And also Zurita is a city that was mentioned by Nasus. But the capital city is a safe bet for now. Alright, next, Nautilus. Nautilus was a Bilgewater captain, not captain. I don't even know what his title was. But he helped on a ship, and he helped people cross the sea, and then he was betrayed. Anyway, Nico is from the east. Whatever that is. So the eastern point, there we go. At the edge of the world. We know that Nico was from the east, and then she traveled to the west, and when her island was blowing up, and so then she ended up here. So anything from this point on to the east, sure. And then there is Nidalee. Nidalee is from like the northern area, right above Ishtal. And there is Neela. Neela is from Kathkan. Kathkan is together with Kamavor, right next to Kamavor. So let's put her there, because we don't exactly have the map here. And there is Nocturne. Again, Nocturne is a demon. Demons can spawn anywhere. However, Nocturne specifically has quite a lot of stories in Fossborough. That's right here. There we go. Alright, and there is... Oh, Nora! Nora doesn't even have any stories. Let's put her here, next to the other people that don't really do much. Alright, Nunu should be closer to Lysandra, but still in the Avarosan territory. Nalshag, because Yeti's Vigil, that's like where the Yeti civilization was later. This makes sense. This makes sense. Again, remember that Willem would be, you know, Yeti magic. Nunu, his tribe was nomadic. They were traveling around Freljord, so anything in the center makes sense. Oriana. Surprisingly, that's a character that's canon in Arcane. Boop, let's put her there. Alright, Ornn. For Ornn, let's pretend that Winterspike is Hearthhome. because that's what it was originally concepted as, meaning right next to Aurora. Let's just put him there. Boop, there we go. Then there is Pantheon. Of course, Pantheon was from the Rakor tribe on the mountain. Let's put him, the Rakor and the Lunari work together. Let's put them next to each other. There we go. Poppy! Poppy is from Ewendale, which is in the northern mountains of Demacia. Let's drop her right there. There we go, Ewendale. Boop. And you'll see Quinn. While Poppy has her stories there now, because of course Poppy is Poppy. Poppy is from Battle City. Quinn, sure, she's right here, so let's actually pick her up. If I can pick her up, there we go. Quinn was actually born there with her brother Caleb, if I remember the name correctly. So let's just drop her there with Poppy. There we go. Alright, Kiana, since she's here. Kiana is of course from Ishtal. There we go. Born right into the capital of the Empire. Pike is from Bilgewater, together with everyone else. We don't know where exactly they are from, but let's just say they are from there. Rakan and later Zaya should be from I forgot the name. It's gonna be right here. Quaylin. There we go. Quaylin. Although they met in Volonko. Do I have to Google? Do I have to search? I guess I do. Yes, the island of Quaylin is mentioned in the bio. Volonko is where they met with Zaya later, but they should be both from that area. Alright, Ramus is from the Great Sai. That's where he's just like roaming around. There we go. And of course, that should be also the same for Rek'Sai since she's here. Because Ramus is actually canonically snacking on the Voidborn from the desert. So the Great Sai, because Sai is a word for desert, sure, they are both from the desert. Then there is Rel. Now Rel, surprisingly, even in the Mbessa book, I don't think it's mentioned where she is from. So central place somewhere. Actually, even like, you know, even for Annie, they were both like students in a questionable school. Let's put them together there. All right, then there is Renata. Renata is one of the modern champions of Piltover and so on that has her stories happening later. So let's put her on the edge. She is surprisingly canon, and she kind of makes sense because her story does actually happen way after Arcane. Jesus, I know you're eager, Shivana. Wait, Renekton. Renekton, there is River Rennek, but same as Nasus, they should be from the capital. There we go. Alrighty, okay, sure, since Shivana is here, let's put Shivana where she should be, which means it's the mountains. Anywhere from these mountains, it should be closer. I mean, originally it was closer to Piltover because that's where the egg was sold, or was supposed to be sold. Let's say this, because then they go into the Argent Mountains and Demacia later, so let's say that's where Shivana is right now. Alright, since Rengar is here, Rengar is of course from the Kilash village, from the Kilash tribe. There we go. And then there is Riven! We actually know exactly where Riven is from, because she's from Travail, which is in southern area of Demacia, which is actually Noxus. There we go, there's Travail. That's where she's from. She's actually surprisingly more Demacian than Noxian. But Noxus just has to conquer everything. Alright, then there is Rumble. Now for Rumble, Rumble is from the desert. We know that. Or sorry, he's not from the desert. Of course, Rumble is a Yordle. Yordles are from the Battle City. But he did get some stories in the desert. We don't know where exactly. Because of course, he's kind of like traveling around, hopping through portals, looking for junk. But it should be like where the cities are, which is more to the south. Vekura-ish. Sure. Then there is Rise. Rise, of course. Well, the Blessed Isles are not a thing anymore, but that's where he connected with his master. And I don't think the Ruination book actually explained where exactly he was from, because it was it was kind of more focusing on Master Tyrus there. All right, then there is our little paid mercenary that I believe is from Rockrund. Or was it Stonewall? It was the Rockrund Plains. And I don't remember if they specifically mentioned which one, and I think it's Rockrund. I'm lying, it's Tereshni, isn't it? Because I remember it was this central... It's where the sea is, in the center, and Tereshni, she mentions this. Never mind! Actually, quite a bit of a reveal. So, Tereshni is a city where the later parts of her story happen. However, she's actually from Amakra. And you know who's also from that city? That's right, it's Malzahar. So these two are from the same city that's not on the map somehow. But it should be close to the north because this is where the rest of their story happens, which also indirectly moves Malzahar here. So these two... This area makes sense. In fact, it actually mentions that the city is supposed to be on the eastern side of the Great Sigh. So I would say like these two could be more there. There we go. Riot, please update the map. Alright, Sejuani. Sejuani should be there right next to Ash. Of course, they are from the northern parts of the Freljord. There we go. Well, in fact, the two actually met in the Ornkal rocks. So there's a better chance that Sejuani is gonna be closer to that area. Alright, and then there is Senna. Now, Senna is not actually a Demacian, unlike Lucian, because she is from... I don't think it was Mudtown specifically, but she's from the general Serpentine area. Because, of course, she is from a small island, as the lore mentions, that is close to Bilgewater, because that's where she first encountered the Harrowing, and of course the Harrowing is coming in from the Shadow Isles. And of course, if you read her short story, you would know that she was on one of those small islands. If you ask me, well, unless you count this island, there aren't that many small islands in this area that wouldn't be here. I'm pretty sure that's where it should be. And we have, not Set, Seraphine. Seraphine is, of course, from Piltover. Nothing crazy there. Then there is Set. Set is from the Noxus-occupied territories of Ionia, meaning it should be in the south. Then we have Shaco. Shaco is a nobody. There we go. Then there is Shen. Shen, of course, also Kinku. We know where that is. There we go, right next to Akali and Kennen. Of course, Zed will join them in a moment. First, Singed. I said Singed. Straight into Piltover with you, because he started as a professor with Heimerdinger. And then Arcane never revealed what actually happened to them. That's gonna be a mystery for later. And there is Sion. Sion could be technically from the capital. I mean, he was a war general there. It was never mentioned where he was specifically from, but sure. He was used by the capital a lot, so it makes sense for him to be from there. Then there is Sivir. Sivir, I believe, is from Vekura. And that's also where the mother of Azir is from. She was born there too. Then there is Skarner. Skarner is from Ishtal. Let's put him next to Malphite. And there is Tamkench. Tamkench is a demon, but most of his stories are in Bilgewater. Let's put him somewhere in there. Then there is Smolder. I said Smolder. Smolder is from Kamavor. Let's put him next to the Kamavoran people. There we go. And there is Sona. Sona is from Ionia. And I believe it was from Barl. Actually, quick correction, she's from Galrin, which is this island in the south. Alright, then there is Soraka. Soraka actually had a cool story when Kalista was traveling on the sea. I'm trying to think if there is another place. It wasn't the Blessed Isles. It was like closer to Bilgewater. I don't remember if it was specifically Bilgewater or if it was actually further. I think it was like one of the islands close to Bilgewater. That's where Soraka was. That's where Kalista met her in the Ruination book. So let's put her there. But of course, Soraka is a Celestial. We could also put her onto Targon. I just think that Bilgewater is a little bit more interesting because, of course, according to Legends of Runeterra, she was also on Targon. Swain, right into the capital. That's where he was raised by his parents, who were there with the Black Rose. There we go. Of course, Swain later started hunting down the Black Rose. Then there is Silas. Now, Silas is from Dragborn. That's his name, Silas of Dragborn. Do we even have Dragborn on the map? I'm pretty sure if I Google the Mageseeker game, I'll find it. Nope, the Mageseeker game doesn't exactly have it, so Dragborn somewhere in there. Now on to the last few. Of course, Syndra is from Phalor on Ionia. There we go. Boop. She's right there. Then there is Talia. Now, Talia was a Noxian before she was used in the war, and then she escaped in Ionia. So let's put her somewhere in the middle. I do not believe her city was mentioned specifically, but I could be actually wrong there. Talon is with the Dukuto family. He got adopted, and so there he is, next to Katarina and Cassiopeia. Then there is Tariq. Tariq is originally a Demacian who was sent onto Mount Targon to die. That was his punishment, also called the Crown of Stone. So let's put him into the capital. There we go. Then there is Timo. Timo doesn't quite do much. We don't know where he is currently in the story. He's just somewhere. Thresh is actually from the Blessed Isles, from Helya, the capital. There we go. Rice should technically be there too. Because he's Earl Grey. Now, Tristana could be with Lulu, but Lulu is kind of funnier there. Trundle is from the general area where Lysandra is. It should be actually closer to Noxus, as was shown in cinematic. Should be closer to Delverhold. I would say, since that's where Lysandra is, that's where they fought with Darius. Sure, let's do that. And also it has to be close to Ornn, because he had some stories with Ornn too, so that area should be fine. And there is Tryndamere. Tryndamere should be in the north. It should be close to the Avarosan territory. You know, that's where they worship the Iron Boar, but it should be more to the west. That's where he fought Aatrox. That's where his village should be. But his lore is kind of old, and we don't exactly know where Tryndamere is from. And then there is Twisted Fate. Twisted Fate, of course. There we go, together with Graves. Then there is Twitch. Twitch, no idea these days, unfortunately. Not even canon, as far as we know. Udyr. Udyr is from the mountains of the Freljord. He later moved to Hirana Monastery with Lee Sin, yada yada yada. But it should be Freljord. It should be closer to Lysandra, because that's where he also, you know, that's where the Ice Witch destroyed his village looking for Udyr, so makes sense. Then there is Urgot. Urgot was originally a Noxian general, of course, so let's drop him into the capital city, after which he was sent into Zaun by Swain. Then there is Varus. Varus, of course, is a Darkin that was part of the Shuriman host. If you wanna talk about Valmar and Kai, which is the two guys inside Varus, they are from Ionia. But let's keep Varus as a Darkin for now. Vayne is from, again, we talked about this with Evelyn, close to the mountains-ish. But again, is it the north or the south? I don't think we know. There we go. Then there is Veigar. Veigar is a Yordle, but he does have one story. He is actually close to Demacia. There we go. Bolem. Because it's the mage of the Bolem Tower. There you go. He's there currently. Then there is Vel'Koz. Vel'Koz is a Voidborn, but he did appear in one location, and that is Tokugol, right in the middle of the map. There we go. Tokugol. Boop. There we go. Then there is Vex. Vex is a Yordle from Battle City. Sure, let's put her under the Shadow Isles. That's kind of where she's chilling. And there is Vi. Let's quickly drop Vi next to Jinx into Piltover and Zaun. Where even is Jinx? There she is. Whoop, there we go. Then there is Viego. Viego is from... I said Viego is from Kamavor. Whoop. Right next to the others. And since these two guys are here, Victor, Piltover and Zaun. Arcane is a thing. There we go. And the other one was Yone. Now, Yone and Yasuo should be... I think it should be Navori. It should be this area because it is close to where Noxians invaded, and then like Riven came in on the path to the Placidium. So it should be that area. Let's actually drop Yasuo in there as well. There is Yasuo, and I don't believe their specific town or village was mentioned. There we go, that area. And there is Vladimir. Vladimir is a Kamavoran prince. Let's put him next to the other people of Kamavor. Warwick. I'm not gonna count you as canon. Then there is Volibear, that technically, you know, was close to Ornn, Winterspike, yada yada. We talked about that, but there is also the Ursine lands. And that's where he's worshipped now, so let's keep him there. And then there is Wukong. I said Wukong. Wukong should be Central Ionia, but that's kind of it. Volonko-ish. I am pretty sure we don't know more than that. Although I'm lying, he should be close to the Vuju village because they eventually meet there. Okay, since we're carrying Zed in there, we might as well move Wukong. Zed, there we go, Kinku. Wukong, sure, let's put him on the barrel because he later meets Master Yi. So that should be fine. Alright, and there is Zaya. I said Zaya. Zaya, of course, is with Rakan. They met later, but they should be both from, like, Quailin territory. We'll deal with Zeri later. First, now I do believe that Zerath was born in Nermazeth. He wasn't born in the capital. Am I crazy? Okay, so after quick search, the bio doesn't actually mention where he's from. However, it mentions the library of Nasus. And unless I'm crazy, that should be Nashrame. So it's possible that he was born there, and then he became an architect, and then he got taken into the Empire as a slave. It is totally possible that I'm wrong about that one. It is possible that it's in the capital city, though. Then there is, let's pick up Xinjiao of Raikon. And of course, Raikon has big letters on the island. There we go. Well, Raikon. Then there is Zeri. Let's drop Zeri into Zon, even though we kind of don't know what's happening there. Let's do the same with Zack. Yeah. Then let's do Zahen. Zahen is, of course, from the Ascended Host of Shurima. Let's put him right there with the other Darkin. Now, then there is Zillion. Now, Zillion is an Icathian mage who was in Icathia before it got destroyed. He also studied in Ishtal. They had pretty good relationship. Well, apocalypse happened. Then there is Yorick. Yori, wrong direction, from the, like, one of the islands around the main capital of Heldia on the Shadow Isles. That was before the Blessed Isles. Zix, let's throw you into Zon. Sure, there we go. And there is Yumi. Let's throw you next to Nora, because we don't know where you guys are right now. Zyra, sure, since I grabbed her, is from the Kumungu jungle. It should be this general middle area, because actually, like, if you go to the other map, you'll see little notes of where Noxians traveled, and then plants started killing them, and it was in that area. And then two more. Let's do Yunara. Yunara is from around the Kinku Monastery. There we go. Boop. And lastly, we can't forget about the one mischievous person that everyone hates and loves. I don't know if anyone loves you. It is Zoe. And Zoe is from Targon. And that is gonna complete the map. Please drop somewhere in there. Oh, there we go. And that's the map. This is every champion that we know of and where they are from. From the Freljord to Demacia to Noxus to Ionia to Bilgewater. I cannot believe I made this app just for this. But there you go. That is what this is. Were the hours of coding worth it? I think they were. I'm having fun. You can jiggle Thresh around, come on. Alright, next video.